Hey everybody, St. Paul here, and it's a special edition of Music on the Run. It's our 1 year anniversary. Woohoo! Hey everybody, it's your host, St. Paul Peterson here. Welcome to our very special first anniversary episode of Music on the Run. I cannot believe that it's been a year already. Man alive, have we had some fun and some unbelievable guests. We come a long way in 1 year. And in some aspects, yes, it has flown by. In some other aspects, I've been kind of locked down here in the family basement for a little while due to COVID. But you know what? We took advantage of that because usually, we started this out to be able to do interviews in person. And that's what I love. I love that interaction. And, you can't quite get that over Zoom. But I got to say that Zoom has opened up, at least the interviews via Zoom, they have opened up a whole world to Music on the Runs as far as guests are concerned. And we've been very, very lucky to interview people from all over the world, really. It's been an interesting transition to that. But, you guys have stuck with us, and we appreciate that. And we aren't going anywhere. We're still establishing ourselves. We're proud of what we've created. And I'll tell you one thing, that I could not have ever done what we're doing here on Music on the Run without the Music on the Run team. And before we start looking back at our year in review, it's time to honor the guys who put this all together. And I certainly could never, ever do any of this by myself. So let me introduce the three gentlemen who have been just incredible over this past year. My producer, Davide Raso, our editor, Ivan Sebastianov, and our social media and Funk Friday fellow, as we say, Jake Miller. Welcome, fellas. How you guys doing?
Hey, how's it going?
There he is. There's Ivan.
Hello.
What's going on? Are you there, Davide?
I am here, yes.
Good. Welcome, and let me just start off by saying thank you. Davide, I recall you and I have been friends for quite a few years, and you were the one you were cattle prodding me going, hey, you know what? You should really do a show interviewing people. And you and I were buddies running, obviously musical buddies, but you're the one who said, we should really do this. I'm like, nah, that sounds like a lot of work. I don't want to do all this. And you said, I'll help.
Yep.
I said, okay, I can't do this without you. So I've learned to delegate, and thank God for that. Davide, give me your thoughts. First of all, I want to talk to you. Give me your thoughts on Music on the Run, our first year.
Wow, it's been a roller coaster. Because we started talking about last year in probably February. And like you said, first, I don't know about it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And then all of a sudden, like in May, you said, hey, you know what? You should look into it. What does it take to do this podcast? And so we talked about it, and we went full on. And for me, it was like stepping on Steve Miller's tour bus. That was like
episode 1 or episode 2, actually. But
that was the one of my first encounters with actually famous people. And so for me, it was like, how are they gonna be? How do I need to behave? And quickly I learned, just be yourself. They're gonna be themselves,
right?
And as soon as I stepped on that tour bus with Steve Miller, he started talking about Tour de France, which was going on right there. And I was right in my element as well. So we
know
went
what? I got to bring this up, though.
Yeah.
We stepped on that tour bus, and this was before we had the rest of the team with us. So we're sitting there with 2 iPhone cameras on the bus trying to rig this thing together and not really knowing what we were doing. And I remember talking with Steve for over an hour because he was so generous with our time. And come to find out that I did not press record on one of the iPhones. Thus, we have a 1-camera shoot. Yvonne, I'm sure you appreciated that. Looking at that, yes, I can make an improvement on this. I'm sorry, Davide, so I totally interrupted you, but I had to throw that in there.
But yeah, so we started with a bang, right? Interviewing Steve Miller, and then I think the Bacon Brothers episode came right away too, taping that. And that was the second brush of like meeting famous people. And again, like Kevin was like just a dude, you know. It was great. So we started taping all these episodes, Sinbad and Eric Hutchinson, the Cydrans. And then we launched in December the first episode with you, right?
Yeah, we collected a few first, didn't we?
Oh, yeah. And then this year it was like March came. And that put us a little bit in the, like, okay, so nobody's coming to Minneapolis now. What we're going to do? And thanks to Zoom, I guess, it opened up a different door to us.
Yeah, closed one, but another one opened. And then what they always say.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's what happened. And you, as my producer, had to stick and move and figure out a way to keep this interesting and help me with different aspects of how we make the transition to a non-in-person interview. And I think you did a great job with that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Hey, do you have a favorite episode, Davide?
I do. Actually, I should take like the whole NAMM experience. For me, that was the highlight so far. Going out to NAMM. I know we've been going for years out there. I've been going for years with you.
Explain what NAMM is to the people who don't know what that is.
It's the National
Association of Music Merchants.
Yes,
I'll help you out here.
It's a huge convention, right? And we got hired by Electro Voice, our beautiful people here in Minneapolis.
That's right.
And so to do these live podcasts in their booth, and we did 4 of them. Victor Wooten, Vince Wilbur Jr., Lenny Castro, and Nathan East.
Yeah.
So those interviews were great, but if I could pick one out of those 4, I think I had to go with Lenny Castro from Toto. Yeah. He's the funniest guy, and it just was just wonderful. It's like if you haven't seen it, you need to go to YouTube and look for that episode and watch it. It's out there. So it was a great interview with Lenny Castro there.
Davide, I just want to publicly just say thank you to you for the extraordinary effort you've put forth. And I could have never done this without you. Would you do me a favor and introduce Yvonne, please? And I think I want you to do that instead of me.
Okay. All right. Well, to do all these video productions, we hired one of the best. Ivan Sovastianov. He's been a student. He's graduating now in December in a couple of weeks. Right, Ivan?
Yeah, exactly.
He has done a fantastic job. He's taking suggestions. He's coming up with his own suggestions, how to make this look. I don't give much guidance on how to cut it because I'm not a professional in video production. I'm a professional in audio production, but Ivan has taken this really to up there. So Ivan Sovastianov, everyone.
Thank you very much. One of the best is a good statement, but it's a little bit too much, I think, for me. Yeah, basically it was very fun all over this year. I really loved editing this podcast. I really loved when we had the ability to actually film them physically before the COVID hit. That was a big part of the Music on the Run for me, at least, actually coming in, filming this podcast, setting up the lights, setting up the cameras, which I really love to do because I'm in digital video media production. But overall, I really quite enjoy this show. I'm really happy that I'm working on this show together and meeting this all awesome people that I can learn so much from, especially in the musical part, because being a video kid, I can't really learn too much about the music since I don't have it implemented into my program. So it's very cool. Some different aspects of the industry that I never knew before, or some interesting aspects about sport related stuff as well, because Music on the Run is not only the music kind of side of the industry, but as well the sport and health related aspects of life of the people. But speaking about the favorite podcasts and what I really loved about doing all these years, for sure, I really loved the Sinbad podcast. It was amazing. Very funny, very outstanding. While I was editing, I was having the hilarious time. It was just super fun, super genius, very genius. It was very interesting to listen to Sinbad and to share his thoughts about different stuff. But in terms of implementation of our video production, actually, and setting up cool lights and everything else, was actually the Bacon Brothers episode. I think this was the first time when we actually started to set up professional lighting, professional camera setup, and we were actually more ready for actual visual podcast rather than the actual sound podcast, which I was happy because I saw that we actually are moving in the direction of making the video podcast a little better. So I was very happy overall for that. But generally, I really enjoyed this year, and I think it's going to be really. We really have so much more ahead of us, especially considering that we're slowly getting out of this COVID zone and we can actually start filming. Especially the last, I think, episode that we filmed physically was the Peterson family podcast, which was very fun again to shoot and set up the lights for. So I'm really looking forward to having all of this industry coming back together, and actually filming the podcast in real life. So.
Ivan, thank you so much for all the hard work you've put into this. It's just been fun to see you grow as a videographer and an editor, and just working together to make this the best podcast that it can be. And you have gone out of your way, and if we would add up the amount of hours that you've spent cutting video, I wouldn't even want to do that. But I just want to say publicly thank you to you. You've been an incredible part of the Motor team. You're going to continue on with us for a little while after you graduate. By the way, everybody, he's going to the Institute of Production and Recording, IPR I think it's called Creative Arts in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I used to teach there quite a few years ago, and he's part of the video program. But we are so proud of everything that you've done, Ivan, and we are honored that you're going to stay on with us for a little while. And hopefully we get to do some more in-person interviews if all goes well. And just want to say thank you. And thanks to your family, too, for letting us have a huge chunk of your time. We sure appreciate them as well.
Thank you very much for taking me in and giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, it's fun to have you. And we cannot forget about Jake, who came in later. Jake Miller, everybody. Jake is a student at St. Thomas here in, is that in St. Paul or is that in Minneapolis, Jake?
There's a couple of locations. The main campus is in St. Paul.
So Jake, tell us exactly all the jobs that you have with Music on the Run so everybody knows.
Yeah, so I kind of came in a little later, like Paul said, and I guess I kind of had to figure out as I went just how I wanted to, I guess, keep myself busy and keep putting things out there social media wise. So On that note, I've been helping out with social media, been doing a lot of like just kind of different marketing, promotional ideas. I've been doing, when I first started, I did a lot more of kind of like these little animations and stuff. It's been hard to have as much time to do that kind of stuff now. But like over the summer, I was getting, it's been fantastic to just like experiment with different ways that people want to engage with different posts and stuff like that. And just been getting so much different perspective on kind of like how to actually get these, how to actually reach an audience for something like this. And I've been just trying to kind of find the best way to, I guess, implement like a modern approach into like kind of trying to target a fan base that's kind of more from earlier generation. And that's
what are you trying to say, man?
Oh, I'm just trying to say that.
That was the most politically correct way to say it. I'm trying to reach some old folks here, baby.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's true, and it is true. But it's a blast to figure out, and it's awesome just like getting to know like this community, and then Paul, there's all the people that that I get to kind of work with through you, just like doing the Funk Fridays and stuff like that. It's just been unbelievable, and it's just been an awesome experience. So,
well, let's talk a little bit about Funk Friday. You came up with this when I was in New York doing my last concert of the year at the Iridium. You were like, hey, why don't you do a weekly like Funk Friday thing? I'm like, sounds like a lot of work to me. What are we going to do? So, and off
sounds familiar.
Oh, yeah. But you know what? And it's a great idea. We're never too old to learn, and he wanted to try this, and I'm like, okay, let's just do this because he's recommending that. When you are trying to lead the band here, you want to give some of your band members the responsibility to come up with great ideas, and this was a great idea. We are 38 episodes into Funk Friday now, and I'll tell you, that's been one, and it was to drive people over to the Music on the Run podcast, which I think you've done a great job doing. It's been so much fun to show the playing side of Music on the Run as well as the interview side of Music on the Run. So thank you for coming up with that concept. Do you want to come clean and tell me who exactly came up with that concept, though, Jake?
Well, I came up with the idea to do Funk Friday. However, my sister was the one who I was talking to her. She runs some social media for her job. And I was like, Megan, what do you do to just like keep people engaged? Like, how do you even know what to post? Like, I want to post a few times a week. What do I even do for that? She goes, just pick a day and just make a day and just make that a special thing. And I was like, Paul does funk, and Friday is a day, so Funk Friday. Let's see what see if he likes it. And I remembered actually, you had a video on Instagram of you and Sinbad like jamming out, and it was one of your top videos on there for a while. And I was like, well, this is what people want to see. They want to see him playing music and just like just jamming out for a minute, and just make it really short and sweet, and just give them one thing every week. And yeah, but yes, I have to credit my sister very heavily.
Well. Great job. Everything that you've seen on social media is not me. That's Jake. He's branded this. He's really developed the audience, and thanks to him, we've got more viewership and listenership. Is that a word? It is now, if it wasn't before. And so I just want to say publicly, thank you for your time and the passion and your dedication. And everybody, all you guys have always shown up on time. You've always met deadlines. It's just been incredible. And Jake, you're graduating from St. Thomas in the spring. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
All right. Yep. Jake's going to stay on for a little while, just up until he graduates, and then we got to let him fly. But thank you again. And to my entire Motor Music on a Run team, I cannot thank you enough. This has been an incredible year. This is something I never thought that I would do. And you guys inspired me to keep going. And, it's not always easy. We always want things to go smoothly, and they don't. And I'll tell you what, you guys have always shown up, come to the party, been problem solvers. And I look forward to see what happens, especially in the future, the bright future of Yvonne. and Jake, and of course my long-standing buddy Davide. You and I will always hang no matter whether we've got a podcast or not.
We just need to put our running shoes on and just go for a run.
And go, baby. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Hey, I think it's time to start looking at some clips. All right, let's get right to it. This first clip is Victor Wooten, and he's talking about his approach to education. Check it out. You had pointed out that you say music is another language.
Well, that's the way I look at it.
Right.
Because if you think about what a language does, right, all the rules or the non-rules or the characteristics of what a language does, you realize music does the same thing or can do the same thing. And I usually say that because I've been asked to become a teacher. I get asked to teach a lot of workshops and things, and I wanted to do like Reggie does, make it easy for you. And I realized, at the risk of offending anybody, especially teachers, I realized that many of us teach in a way that makes it difficult for people.
So how so? Because I think this is brilliant, the way you've explained this in the past, but people need to hear this.
Well, a lot of the times in music, we say that you have to learn a lot of rules first before you can play. And we accept that. You got to know what note it is before you can learn how to use it, and you got to know scales. That just slows you down, right? So if you turn it into a language question, think about you have a little baby,
right?
And you say, well, I can't talk to you until you learn your alphabet. You got to know your vowels, sometimes Y.
Right.
You know, you got to learn how to spell, and then we can talk. And plus, you're a beginner, so I can't talk to you. I'm a professional. You know,
right.
You got to talk to other
beginners. So you're
beginners.
putting up barriers right away.
Right. We do that. We do that. And we tell the beginners that they're wrong. Like if you're teaching them a C major scale and they play a C sharp, they're wrong.
Right.
And when you're learning rules in the beginning, you're going to be more wrong than you are right.
Right.
So you're hearing over and over that you're wrong, you're going to quit.
That doesn't make it fun at all.
Not at all. So think about a baby learning a language.
Right.
Do they ever know they're a beginner?
No.
Do you ever tell them you're a beginner? Do you make them practice? Here's your vowels for today. You don't get to learn the whole alphabet. Like we don't teach kids all the notes. You only get to use the ones I tell you.
That's right.
But in the language, you learn all. By the time you've been talking a bunch of years, you start learning the alphabet. You learn them all. We don't say here's the right ones, these are the wrong ones. Like I don't like X. I don't want to use an X that much, but it's still I have to learn it, right?
Right.
We don't use Z, Q, and all, but we still learn it.
Right.
Right. But in music, if we're in a certain key, you got to use these notes. The other ones are wrong.
So how do we change the thinking on that as we approach education?
From the top down.
Okay. So is it more immersion or is it more a philosophy change?
How'd you learn to play?
Through osmosis, man. My brothers and sisters, they just made me play.
Bingo.
They didn't make me play. I wanted to play.
Exactly, because they were doing it.
Right.
So you surround a student with people who love it.
Right.
Put the student in the middle. Don't tell the student that they're a beginner. Do not correct the student when they're wrong. And just let them play.
Is this part of how you conduct your camps?
Absolutely.
So tell me a little. So for those of you who don't know, Victor is celebrating his 21st year of Wooten Woods. Is that correct?
Sure. I've running music camps. Yeah.
Please tell these guys a little bit about what you do down there.
Yeah. The easiest way to find out about it is just to go to my website, victorwooten.com. Or if you want to go directly, from the website, my website, you can find the campsite, or you can go directly there, which is vixcamps.com. But it's VIX camps, so VIXCAMPS, and you can get to the website. And we run camps April through October, a different camp every month, different topics. We started with just bass players.
Okay.
And here's what I learned from Reggie. Reggie is a teacher that can access your strengths really quickly, even strengths you didn't even know you had. And that's where he starts. He starts with what you're already good at. The same way we do with babies learning a language. We don't tell them, well, you're not speaking true English, so I can't listen to you or I can't talk to you.
Right.
We learn the baby's way of communicating, right? Your parents know what every sound is you make, right? So we accept their way,
right,
knowing they're going to learn our way later. So we accept their way as right. So in music, Reggie does the same thing. Whatever sound you can make, he'll put on a drum machine, he'll start playing chords, he'll start singing, and he'll make that sound. Doesn't matter what instrument, what the sound is. He'll provide context to the sound, and all of a sudden you're musical. Doesn't have to be right. Right? Music doesn't have to be right. Music just has to be, or the instrument, the sound doesn't have to be right. It just has to be put into a context. You know, like my brother Joseph says, you can hit a table, cough, whatever. Out of context, that doesn't make sense. But put it in the context.
Right.
All of a sudden, you got the whole crowd. Yeah. Because you start hearing the context, not the individual note. But we teach individual notes, and they have to be right before we can put them in the context. That's backwards.
Right. So it sounds to me like you remove the constraints.
As much as possible.
Okay.
Because the student usually comes to you with some constraints.
Okay.
That they've already learned. And so the goal is to try to
some
break
deprogramming in there?
Right, right. Exactly,
I need deprogramming sometimes. We all get in our own heads, don't we? Yeah, that's,
especially adults, as we start to pay more attention to what we think others are thinking about us.
But isn't that the truth, man? It's like, oh, I wonder if I played that note right. I know Victor's out there. Oh, darn. Right. And then you get all in that, and the head game starts happening, and then you lose who you are and why Victor or whomever is there. Bingo. In the first place, they're here to hear you as an individual.
Bingo, bingo.
Right. Our next clip is with Ben and Leo Cydran, and Ben talks a little bit about his time with Miles Davis. Check it out.
People say Miles is tough. He's not tough. He just doesn't like bullshit. And if you come at him, you know, with bullshit, you won't last a second. He said, but you're not going to have any problem. Sure, no problem. And it was fantastic, man. I went out to Miles's house in Malibu with Tommy. Tommy came out there with me.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Tommy's in tow.
And I have to tell you something.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the story, but then there's a kicker. So we go out there, we knock on the door. Door opens, there's Miles, man. And Miles, you know, his skin was like burnished. He was a little guy, and he had no fat on him. And his skin was burnished, and I had this impression that it was burnished from all the attention he had gotten from other people staring at him. It was like
polished.
Yeah. Polished.
Yeah.
So anyway, he gave Tommy a hug, and then he gave me a hug. And then he said, come on in.
Really?
Yeah. And then he made lunch. He cooked lunch. He took us through his house. And then at one point, a couple hours into it, he said, so you want to interview me, huh? I said, yeah, Miles, I do. He said, okay, man, let's go. And we sat down and we talked, and it was just sweet. It was sweet. You know, there was no, it was what Tommy said. You know, if you just show up and be yourself, that was the message of Miles. But here's the kicker I want to tell you. On the way home from Miles's house in Malibu, we stopped at Pat Raines's house, who lived down the street. And we sat there, and Pat was on the phone with Dave Sanborn, and Dave Sanborn needed a keyboard player. And I got on the phone with David that same night, and I said, I know your keyboard player, man. His name is Ricky Peterson. I know who your keyboard player is. That was the same night as the Miles interview.
I never knew that.
Yeah. It was coming back from Miles's house. We stopped at Pat's place, and I don't know, you know, a month later, Ricky was playing with David.
This next clip is great bassist Nathan East talking a little about work ethic. Check it out.
And I just have good examples of people with such great work ethics. Clapton, you know, he's again, you know, I look at his level of energy, and he just doesn't stop. And when he plays, he doesn't leave anything. He doesn't leave anything. You know, it's like full on. You know, and we laugh because then sometimes he'll have a blister, and you know, we were in Japan a few months ago, and he had a blister on the finger that he has to do that lick for "Wonderful Tonight." You know, so
break out the super glue.
Like I thought. So that lick is like he bend it up like 3 notes or something, and those little strings on the, so he you know, this big blood blister. And I was thinking, so we were playing the tune, and I thought, oh, hey, he's rearranging that melody a little bit. But then I realized, you know, it was like
it was pain.
Every note,
pain.
You know, blood is flying everywhere. So you know, people go to a concert, you don't realize these are kind of the behind the scenes issues that are taking place,
and they're real, man. This next clip is Lenny Castro the great percussionist that we talked to at the NAMP show. And usually he's with Toto, but he talks a little bit about being able to have the freedom to tour with some other folks. So you weren't necessarily in the actual
No,
band.
I was
You
not
were-
assigned. I was not
Okay.
a signed partner. I was not a signed member.
But you, I mean, so that's a different kind of a thing for you, be acting as a sideman, but you were still in the Brotherhood. Was that a positive move for you, do you think? Do you
Well, at first, I got really bugged about it.
Okay.
And I actually went through some depression about it,
No
especially
kidding.
on the road, they'd go out and do signings and I'd be in the hotel by myself,
Got
whatever. And they'd get taken to dinners by the record company and I wouldn't be invited and other things like that. So it kind of took a little bit of toll on me mentally. But then one day after I came back from a Stevie Wonder tour, I went to Jeff's house and I was like raving. I said, man, I was out with Stevie, man. I played all my favorite songs.
Yeah.
And Jeff just looked at me and said, yeah, who cares?
And why is that?
Well, he looked at me and he says, you know what? I can't do what you do. I'm chained down to record companies and managers. I can't fly around and do shit freely like you do.
So you had the freedom to do that. No, for those people who aren't in the music business who are listening, when you get signed to a record deal, you have to get permission to do all these other.
Well, there's a whole chain of command that you have to go through. Can I do? You have the record companies, managers. I mean, whoever else is involved.
Yeah, I mean, you literally and lawyers, and the whole bit.
Not to mention, yeah.
So, but you had the freedom, and at that point, did you start to change your mind about it?
Then I started realizing, you know what? Jeff's trying to tell me that I'm in a good place.
Yeah, because
I didn't, anything that happened to the band, either bad or good, would happen to me too.
Well, exactly. I mean, there was.
So I was kind of exempt from that, since I wasn't a member.
Isn't that interesting how things work out?
And I went out with a lot of. when they weren't working, I was gone.
Like who did you get to play with? Tell us a few names because you've played with everybody. You got to give us some idea here. Okay, let me give you an idea. How about Fleetwood Mac? How was that?
Yeah, that was great. That was fun. I did the dance tour with them, which turned into a DVD, which was really nice. Mick Fleetwood is a special kind of guy, let me tell you.
He's large.
He's so funny, man.
He is funny.
I used to have to. It was basically babysitting him on stage. He'd forget his own beat.
Yeah.
And then I'd be on the congas and he'd be looking at me, deer in the headlights. And then I'd go, and then he'd go, thank you. I mean, I love Mick, but he's not one of, he's not a Dave Weckl. He's not one of those, extremely well-educated drummer type guys, but he's a natural guy. He's a guy that just has a natural groove that he does, and that's what he does.
You want to know what's really funny about that is that I have my own band called St. Paul and the Minneapolis Funk All-Stars, and we were coming back from a tour in Australia, and we stopped in Maui, and we played Mick's club.
Did you play his club?
We played his club, but we had two drummers, Mick and my buddy Joey Finger.
Joey, yeah.
And Joey,
Joey.
it was fan-friggin-tastic.
Hi, Joey Fingers.
Yeah, Joey, you missed him. He was here two days ago at them. But it was fantastic because Mick was doing Mick. And Joey was doing Joey, and it was funky, man. So it was really fun. Ricky was on that gig as well. I had the opportunity to talk with my great old buddy, Donny Osmond. In this clip, he talks a little bit about his relationship with the song Puppy Love. Take it away, Donny.
You were with me. What am I thinking? You were actually with me.
Well, tell me, did I have fun?
We had it was during the Soldier of Love tour, and we were in New Jersey. I can't remember the theater.
Red Bank?
The Count Basie Theater, I think it was.
Count Basie.
So we were doing the show, and everybody kept yelling, "Sing Puppy Love, sing Puppy Love," and that just really irked me. And you knew how much it was irking me, because the music we were giving them was anything but what I did in the past. So finally, I turned around to you, since you were my music director, and I said, "Stop." And you stopped the band. I don't know if you remember this moment, but I walked up to you, I said, "Guys, give me a heavy metal version of Puppy Love." And everybody started laughing. And, and I hit the floor. And they call it puppy love. And hitting the floor.
Right, I do remember that.
It was fantastic.
I do remember that.
We were loving it. We were laughing. And some people in the audience were obligatorily laughing.
Right.
Because after the show, you guys were in the bus. And I was the last one to get out. And I walked out of the stage door. And this fan stopped me. And she said, "Why did you make fun of Puppy Love?" I said, "Well, it's my song. I can do whatever I want to with it." And
right.
And then she said something that stopped me in my tracks, Paul. She said, "You may have had a hit with that song, but that song was a big part of my childhood memories, and you have no right to mess with my memories."
Ooh.
So
See, they serve a purpose.
So when you say schlock, yeah, maybe at a period of time in my life, I look back and say, that's schlock. You know, some of the songs were just average, but it did serve a purpose. And so what I've been able to do in my life is now embrace every single one of those albums, including Disco Train. In fact, in the new show, I'll make sure that I have Disco Train ready if somebody asks for it. And I'll do an amazing version of that song.
I had the opportunity to interview my buddy Corey Wong, who's in the group Wolfpack and the Fearless Flyers and has a great solo career. This is how he got the opportunity to join the band Wolfpack. Take it away, Corey. Explain a little bit about the Wolfpack gig. And if you guys don't know who that is, go to Spotify or wherever you get your music. Go check them out because they're an entity unto themselves. They're incredible. So explain to me how that happened.
Sure. I was playing, for people that aren't familiar, there's a club called Bunkers in Minneapolis. There's a band called Dr. Mambo's Combo that's been doing a gig for 30 years.
35 years, something like that.
And, Prince would come and hang out there, and a lot of the band was Prince alumni, that sort of thing. And the guitarist, Billy Franzi, had rotator cuff surgery because he had a bowling incident. We'll stop and acknowledge that. So I was subbing for him for maybe 6 months.
Wow.
I don't remember, something like that, because he was recovering. And I was hanging out there already a lot, sitting in, and I would sub for him once in a while before that. But while he was gone, that was a time when some of the other cats from Wolfpack were in town playing for another artist. They came, hung out. That's where I met them. And eventually we just hit it off as friends. Like I could, it's that sort of thing where you can tell who the musicians are in the audience. When you're playing on stage, you can kind of tell in a club who the musicians are. The way that they're watching the fingers and the gear and the way they're pointing and talking to each other, you know who the musicians are. Right. I was like, oh man, these guys look my age, look like they would be my friends. I can tell they're musicians. Why don't I know them? They must be from out of town. So after the set, Theo and Jack, and I don't remember who else was there at the time, came up and introduced themselves. We hit it off, became great friends, eventually started jamming a lot together. And then it just kind of all bubbled into friendship leading into playing more together and then kind of becoming a part of the band and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's funny because I think Jack, who's the band leader of Wolfpack, his initial intention was for it to be an internet band. Yeah. And it was just a YouTube act. I remember the first couple sessions that I ever did with Wolfpack. He's like, all right, guys, let's remember, we're a YouTube act. We're not a band. We're a YouTube act. It's funny just because...
That's a good mindset to get in. That's inspiration for you.
Yeah, it's like, it's a different... Like, it's like, oh, yeah, we're making a record, but at the same time, there's video, and that's a big part of it, and Jack has had a vision for the band from the beginning, and then eventually the popularity started to just grow and grow and grow, and people wanted to see it live. And starting a few years ago, started touring a lot more.
Right.
And then, our last gig that we played was in September, which was at Madison Square Garden. So it's like, it's grown and grown from...
Not one night.
No, it was just one night.
Was it one night? I thought you did multiple nights.
It was only one night.
Oh, no, I'm really
But it was sold out.
Wait, now you're not signed. You don't have a manager. How does this happen?
The internet. The internet's amazing. God, and I think also just like...
Good music.
Yeah, that. And we have Joe Dart, who's like the best bass player of our generation.
By the way, please tell him I'm a huge fan, would you?
I will.
Please tell him that. He's a bad dude.
And just so many, there's a band of characters. You know, it's like we're all our own kind of character on our instruments, but also in real life in a funny and cool way. And you have Jack, who is a visionary. And, you know, the Billboard and Rolling Stone articles are like, this band sold out Madison Square Garden without a manager. It's like, yeah, but Jack also really is the manager of the band.
Okay.
And, you know, we don't have a traditional management thing and there's no label, but Jack runs Wolf Records, which is its own independent thing with only Wolfpack and Fearless Flyers on it.
I had the opportunity earlier this summer to talk to my family, the Peterson family, right here in the basement where we all grew up playing music, and we still play music to this day. My family talks a little bit about what it's like to be in the moment and create music in the moment. This is fascinating.
And I think we were playing with a few musicians and playing the Dakota, and yes, and then the Leamington, and Glenn and Lee, and then it was Bobby, and so anyway, this incredible trio, and I was really learning, and Billy was teaching me by going, listen to Ernestine Anderson, listen to Nancy Wilson, listen, and we did, growing up, have that as influences
That's
in
what
the house.
Mom and Dad listened to.
Well, yeah, but not Ernestine, and so she had a pocket that I was like, oh, I get this,
Portland,
you know, and then at 31, I just had my third kid, and I was singing a lot of jingles, just starting to get into that business as a young adult, and quite honestly, I was hired for my soulful voice. But as a result, I found that there was a studio out in the western suburbs where we could record something live in the studio. And I called you. I remember being in the parking lot going, hey, we could record live in this studio. What do you think? So you put together...
Don't throw me in that briar patch.
Oh my goodness. Kenny Horse, David Hazeltine, Kenny on drums, David Hazeltine on piano, Iris Sullivan. Now that was the first session, and it was one day, 2 or 3 takes at a time, and you said, go. And I went, what? And it's so interesting because when I talk about that now, this many years, decades later, I still do some of those arrangements. And it's because it was in the moment creativity, and he just said, trust yourself. Just go, just do it. I like it when you're not on your center.
Yeah, when you hang yourself,
exactly.
When you recover, it's the best stuff you'll ever do.
I'll never forget that. And I went,
it's a good teaching, man.
Oh yes,
that's a good teaching.
Yeah. And I remember Ben Cydran saying, we would do, some of them were 1 takes, and we just kept them. Some of them were 2 takes. And Cydran always said, make sure that if you're doing something live, please honor the fact that your most character is going to be on the first or second take.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
And it was like, I lived with stuff that I, in the studio, wouldn't have had to have lived
Solos,
with.
anything like that. Any of that kind of thing always gets off on the first take.
Right, well, yes.
Because then you go in and you go, I can fix that.
Yeah.
You probably think, no. Cydran is like, nope, you're not.
He's the greatest at that.
Right, so it was a real humbling learning experience for sure.
Let's take a little break from the podcast because I want to talk to you about Patreon. What's Patreon? Well, it's a way for you to enter in and help us out here on Music on the Run. There's a couple of different tiers you can join us at, and you can get all that information on patreon.com/Music on the Run podcast. Anyone who signs up to Patreon right now with an annual subscription will also get a 10% discount over doing it monthly. And if you come in right now, we're having a 1-year anniversary special. You will get a Music on the Run hoodie. Now look at this thing. Those of you listening, you'll have to go check it out on the website. But it's a beautiful, high-quality sweatshirt. So those of you who are already sponsoring us at the $10 level, we say thank you. You can also switch to the annual subscription to save that 10%, and we'll throw in a hoodie. But we're only shipping in the lower 48 states. Sorry, my friends in Australia, Japan, Europe. Hey, those of you who are already sponsoring us in the lower tiers as well, it's a really good time for you to upgrade to the $10 level. and that annual subscription and get the free hoodie. But if you can't do that, we will be offering this to you, this sweatshirt, for a discount. It's totally unique to our patrons who sign up and financially help us. You know, it takes a lot to put on the show, and we're happy to do it. And we're honored that we can keep going like this. But this is the way you can enter in. You can't get this anywhere else. Go to www.patreon.com/Music on the Run podcast for all the details. Limited time offer, so hurry up and get over there. Now let's get back to the podcast. This next clip features my dear friend Kat Dyson, who I had the pleasure to play with in Donny Osmond's band and the Donny and Marie show as well, about 20 years ago. I had her explain what it's like to be a woman in the music business. I come from a musical family, but of strong men and women. My mother, whom you mentioned earlier, Jeannie Arlen Peterson, single mom, raising her 3 boys and 2 girls after my father passed when he was 48, a musician, having to take care of, I was 4, my brother was 10, Patty's 14, Linda and Billy are out of the house, but being a woman in the music business, how has that journey been for you?
Well, I mean, you and I have a similar type of story. My dad was 40 when he was widowed with 7 kids. I was 11, and my baby sister was 3.
Whoa.
She's a nurse practitioner now. She's Dr. Maria Holmes. She's the superstar. I'm just trying to hang with her.
I love her.
So because I was kind of put in a leadership position before I even knew what that meant, I was forced to mature maybe quicker than most. And I was 5'10" by the time I was 12. So I was playing in clubs at 13 and lying and telling them I was 18. As long as I didn't drink or do anything illegal, I didn't, I wasn't into drugs or anything like that. So I was able to kind of just do it. I just wanted to play. My mom bought my first guitar, and within a year, she was gone. Wow. So having it in my hand helped me not miss her so much, helped me grieve when I did miss her. And she said, you can do this. You can do whatever you want. I was playing piano. I was singing in every choir. I was doing all of that stuff while she was alive. So guitar was the fun thing to do because I had to take piano lessons, which for me weren't all that much fun.
Right.
That's why I'm not a great piano player. So I just wanted to play. And I just wanted, and I had 4 brothers, so I was used to the male dynamic. So as long as they saw the guitar before they saw me, I just didn't really, I don't know how to put this, but I didn't really put a lot on my sexuality because I was tall, female, but I grew up a tomboy playing all the sports with my brothers because I was pretty much their babysitter. So I played basketball, baseball, it's like, okay, she's one of the Dyson kids, So I was tall and lanky, not really buxton or anything to look at, and I just wanted to keep playing, and I really didn't focus so much on, hi, I'm the girl. I was just like, hey, fellas. I can play this part. And, I had a lot of, blowback. A lot of folks would just come up and put their head next to the amp to make sure I was playing, because in a lot of bands in Virginia, we didn't even have the money to buy keyboards or anything. So most bands had 2 guitar players. And, I learned a lot of the keyboard parts to a lot of stuff on rhythm guitar for our, lead player to float. And then we had some horns and, we all that average white band, Tower Power, James Brown with the 2 guitar players, Beatles with the, multiple guitar players, all that 2 guitar player stuff, I kind of learned how to do. And people just kind of got used to, oh yeah, that's that Dyson girl. And, like I said, I didn't, when I had the bikini body, I wasn't really into showing the bikini body because I wanted them to see that I could play.
Sure.
And, I didn't, and I'm not downplaying or by any means criticizing how, women dress or present their art. I think you should do that according to your personality. But because I was put in that position, my fashion was secondary. And I'm sure you can go back and find some pictures that show that.
This next clip is so cool. My buddy Sinbad came into town. We were both working on the Starkey Hearing Foundation gala he was hosting, and I was doing some music. And he came over late night, and we were just hanging, talking about music. And, of course, he did the podcast that night. But he is a really, really, really good musician. So he wanted to learn how to play a little bit of Minneapolis sloppy bass. So I figured I'd pick up the bass and show him a few things. And since that time, I don't know if you know this, but Sinbad has had a stroke. Sinbad, we're praying for you. We love you. We're believing for a complete recovery for you. We love you. And we'll see you back very, very, very soon. Check out this clip. Go ahead, Sinbad.
Dude, man.
Woo, that's what it is.
Dude.
Sheila E. and I go back 35 years, and I had the opportunity to speak with her over Zoom about her relationship with Prince. You did a lot more playing with Prince than I did. Do you look back on that as being a fun period in your life?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, we had a blast. Well, I mean, I met Prince in 1977. Right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, right when he started his first record, he came to the Bay Area to do his first record, and then played the Circle Star Theater, which was in San Francisco / San Carlos, in San Francisco. So, to go see him play, and it was the first time. I had heard about him for so long. I'd say for so long. It wasn't that long because my dad was in Santana, and they were in the same studio. So, and there was this buzz happening. It's funny because Andre and I heard him talking about it when I interrupted that Zoom call that happened with all.
Oh, right.
All playing bass players, yeah. And we'd never talked about it, but there was a buzz going on. I was like, I want to meet Prince, So it was 1977 that I met him, and we became friends instantly. And he started coming to San Francisco and the Bay in Oakland just to visit me. He would stay in San Francisco, and I'd go pick him up. Then I just showed him everything about Oakland. My favorite donut sandwich, movie theater, like the lake, in Berkeley where people are jamming, like how I grew up watching everyone play. And he just loved it. He wanted to be in the same studio as Sly and his Carlos. And he loved Bay Area musicians. So it started from there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So here we are. Well, let's fast forward to today, and of course Prince is gone, which is unbelievably tragic. Is it hard to be an MD when you have to do a tribute to Prince like the Grammys? You can't win for losing because you can't include the world. You just can't. I mean, that's got to be incredibly difficult, those decisions that you have to make. And maybe you don't have to make them all. I'm sure that you had directors breathing down your neck going, no. Much be better for ratings if we did this and that. Is that hard for you to make those decisions? Because I know it must be.
Well, I was asked to come in initially before they had already made a bunch of decisions. So I came in the middle or a little towards the beginning of it. And so there were decisions made. And yes, it is about ratings. And, there was only so much. My hands were tied. And there's only so much that you can do. It's so hard. Like, I'm still reaching out to people to, let them know. I actually did reach out to as many as I could during the time and just saying, look, it's not going to happen. I tried. And I did, and it's unfortunate, but at the same time, Prince touched so many lives, you know, and he had so many different bands, and who came in and out of the bands in those periods in which he had changed who he was as well, and what he looked like, and what the music was about, and what he wanted to talk about. And so each band had a theme, and he was influenced by those people as well that were in the band. So, you know, there were a lot of us. There were a lot of us that were influenced. When we influenced him, he influenced us. And, you know, I would hope that one day we could all get together and really do something. That was my dream and desire a long time ago, for all of us to do something. And, you know, maybe one day we can.
Well, I have to tell the people who are listening or watching that Sheila is responsible for getting the band The Family back together at your first, was it called? Was it Elevate Hope, or what was it then?
It was Elevate Hope back then, yeah.
So that was, I can't even remember the year, but we played the Forum, and it was such a celebration and a reunion of sorts.
It was.
To get everybody back. It's unreal.
Yeah, no, that was incredible, actually, because that was the first time, like, I wanted the Revolution to come back together and play, and also the Family. And then I had asked Morris. Morris didn't want to do it, but I think Jerome came.
He did.
Yeah,
he was
Jerome.
there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because then he went part of you guys, yeah.
Yeah.
Jerome came, and then we did Madhouse. We did part of Madhouse.
Yeah.
We had Apollonia, Jill Jones, Carmen Electra, Patti LaBelle, Shaka.
Mm-hmm.
We had so many people, and then we wanted to make this we called it a family jam.
Right.
And we actually had Cubby mixing, which is the guy who he mixed all of the Purple Rain tour. We had Roy Bennett doing the lights. We had all the people behind the scenes and the managers, the road managers, people who assisted. As many people as we could have from the whole Purple Rain tour was a part of that event. And it was, man, to see everybody, that was amazing. What a joy that was. Gosh, that was amazing.
And to not only to see everybody, but to rekindle old friendships, to listen to that great music.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. These guys are so near and dear to my hearts. It's the group The Family, also known as F Deluxe. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to do a gig in a year, but we're looking forward to coming back out. But we had the chance to sit down via Zoom and talk about how the group The Family was created. Eric, how are you? How did you get notified? I know your brother, Alan, was in the fold, obviously, but did he just call you on the phone and say, hey?
Yeah, that was basically it. You know, I was living in Atlanta, not really doing too much. I had left Pittsburgh, where my career had been based since the beginning, really. And Alan called and just said he's putting this new band together, and he wants a saxophone in it. And my response was, I don't think so.
Of course,
I mean, you know, what's the music going to be? Look, you have to understand something. I was not into Prince,
right? Other
than a few of his songs that I may have heard and liked, but I had one album of his, didn't much care for it, other than maybe one song. There was nothing about the idea of it that had any interest to me, basically, other than the fact that finally I realized, you know something? I need a gig. And I had no illusions or expectations about what it was going to be. I came up to Minneapolis basically to do a recording session. And for me, that might have been the complete sum total of it. Alan had told me that Alan had played for Prince some recordings of mine, you know, probably my band in Pittsburgh or whatever. And Prince was sufficiently impressed to say, let's bring him up here to do the session. But to whatever degree Prince heard something that he thought might be of value, that didn't guarantee that once we got in the studio that anything was going to really work. You know, I mean, I could have gone in there. He might have said to me, he said, Erica, thank you so much for coming. I don't think this is what I'm looking for. Or by the same token, I was there to just do a recording session for the guy, do it and get paid. And at the end of that, if it wasn't something that I particularly was interested in continuing, I would have gone back to Atlanta. That would have been that.
Right.
Fortunately, we both enjoyed the afternoon. But you have to understand, my involvement was completely incremental, because once I did that session, I stuck around to hang out with Alan, and mainly because I had family here. My mother was from St. Paul, and I had aunts and uncles and cousins that lived here that I hadn't seen in a long time. So I came up here more to see them than,
All right.
you know, it was like, I'm going to come up here. They're going to pay me to come up so I can spend some time with my family. And, oh, yeah, I'm going to do a recording session with this guy, and I'll get paid for it. And
wow.
Yeah. That was basically I had no expectations, illusions. And also, I did have enough understanding from Alan's involvement that this was a guy that can change his mind like we change underwear.
Right, of course.
You know, so whatever degree, and this was just as Purple Rain was coming out. So, I mean, he had bigger fish to fry, you know. And I think Alan had already told me that the likelihood if this project was actually going to come to fruition, that it could be as much of a year before it was ever going to be released. And I'm thinking, well, that's a year that he can completely lose interest in this and just move on. So I had, you know, I was just going to see where this went.
Right.
And it went.
So you came in as a session musician at first.
Yeah.
As you said, incrementally.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, we have a person on the line. Now, don't go anywhere. I'm speaking to the person who's going to come in as a guest. I've hidden where he is and who he is from you guys. It's going to be a surprise, but just that person, please hang on. Bean, so you and I are sitting in this circle. This is what I remember. In the warehouse. Do you remember us sitting around when everybody had left and Prince came in and he said, you know, he told us about the family. Do you recall that at all?
Kind of. I know he was impressed with, you know, you being an 18-year-old kid and you had a nice voice. He had heard you singing on the piano or something, and it was something about you that he liked. So
not for long, though.
Maybe it's that plaid jacket you're wearing. Maybe that's what it is.
Maybe that's what it was.
Hey, I put a suit on sort of for you. And wait, Bean, be nice. I'm wearing you. Do you see that?
Yeah, I see that.
Okay, all right. I'm representing you here. Oh, so here's what I remember. You and I sitting in the warehouse in Eden Prairie, sitting around in a circle, and Prince said, okay, everybody left. Morris is gone. Chessie's gone.
Yeah.
What do you guys want to do? I'm going to form a new band, and I'm paraphrasing and trying to, you know, go into my brain to recall this. But as I remember it, he said, I got a new band, and I want you to be the singer in it. And he pointed at me, and whomever didn't want to do it, that's cool. Go your own way.
Yeah.
And I think Jerry Hubbard was in that meeting, and he ended up going with Jesse.
Yeah.
And then, and that was the first time I was notified about that. Brian Ray, the great guitar player and bass player and artist, sat down with me not too long ago and talked to me about how the Paul McCartney gig came about.
But yeah, so Abe and I got to be very good friends while touring all over France together. And at one point, about 5 years into those gigs, Abe was about to consider coming back to France for one more gig, one more tour. I did it, and I got a call from him saying, I'm not going to go. I've got this opportunity. I'm going to be playing. I've got an album with Paul McCartney. Like, what? Can you just not wash your hand?
Yeah, exactly.
By that time, you'll have shaken his hand, and I'm going to need to shake that hand.
Yeah.
So Abe does the record with Paul. I come back from France, and Abe is at a party, my birthday party, and I said, so Paul McCartney, tell me more about it. And he's going, oh my God, it was just so fun. He's so cool. He's so generous. It was great. It was very creative. It was like, oh my God, I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I know the other guitar player that's in it, Rusty, and I don't know who's going to be playing. Who's going to play bass when he plays guitar or piano? And then wouldn't that person switch to guitar when he plays bass? He goes, yeah, we're looking for a guitar player who plays bass. And I said, I'd love a shot at that.
Oh, well, good on you, man, for speaking up.
Like he hadn't thought of it. And, like that was the one time where I thought, I'm going to shoot my hand up in the air.
Yep.
And give it a go. And long story short, here I am. So,
how many years was Sir Paul?
Now I've been with Paul McCartney for 19 years. Yeah.
No one has a gig for 19 years, Brian Ray. No one does. What is up with you?
It's crazy.
What's the secret of keeping? Okay. Hold on a second. First of all, these are two unbelievable gigs.
Yes.
Getting the gigs is one thing. Keeping the gigs is something completely different.
Oh, we all know that. It's so true. Well, all I can say is the four of us in the band behind Paul, that's Wix on keyboards and musical director, Abe, Rusty, and myself, have all been there the same amount of time as a band. Now, Wix was there years before as well, starting in 89, I think.
Wow.
So we were lucky enough to have somebody who, before Paul joined us for the first rehearsals, knew where sort of the bones were, in these performances and what to do. So Wix was able to sort of, lay it out for us and help us as we learned the songs for 5 days before Paul got there to join us, for just 6 more days before our first gig. Literally, that's how fast it was.
Tell me a little bit about the rehearsal and what you had to do before Paul came in.
Yeah, so fortunately, as I was saying, Wix, having been there before on keyboards, could help lead us through the first few days of rehearsal before Paul arrived. So we had 5 days of rehearsal as a 4-piece band, learning 45 songs before Paul came in to play for 6 more days, and then we were on tour. That was it. And, it was a lot, and it was exciting. It was thrilling. It was scary. I didn't really allow myself to call anybody and tell them I had the gig with Paul McCartney until that 6th day with him, where he said, "Okay, guys, sounds great. See you tomorrow." Then I was like, "Oh my God, I think I'm going on tour."
You got the gig.
Yeah. And then it's all like you were saying before. It's like then keeping the gig becomes the thing. And that's, I guess, mostly about, fitting in and establishing trust and having fun. And I don't know, being fun to be around, being a good hang,
Yeah. Because you guys play, 2.5, 3 hours, but the other 21 hours, you're not on stage, and you have to be able to be compatible with these people, whether you're on the tour bus or the jet or whatever the case may be, on whatever tour, at any level. It really truly is about the hang and in your ability to kind of find your way through that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and you don't get to be in any group for 19 years without some kind of friction here and there. And I'm not saying there hasn't been, because, we're 4 grown men with varying degrees of strong opinions, and behaviors and stuff. And you're right. Sometimes it's close quarters, but at least on tour, we each have our own room, so you can slide away, and we're not playing 6 nights a week because it's Paul. So it's more like, 3. So you really do have quite a lot of 4 nights a week.
Yeah.
You have quite a lot of time away from the pod, and that's how you restore your energy.
Got it. So do you consider yourself the bass player in this band, or you get to do it all?
I'm a guitar player, of course, and I learned to play bass better because that was the job description, is to be a guitar player who played some bass rather than a bass player who played some guitar, right? So I would just say I'm the guitar player who plays stunt bass and picked up a little bass here and there.
Stunt bass.
I end up playing, 60% of the show on bass because he plays whatever he wrote the song on or whatever he's comfortable playing live. And so most of the time he wasn't writing songs in the Beatles on bass.
Yeah.
That's just what he played when they played live.
Right.
And all of his solo stuff was either piano or guitar centered when he wrote, as far as I know. So it would default to me playing bass because he's going to be on piano or he's going to be on guitar or mandolin or ukulele or whatever, So I've just got to be ready to play whatever he's not playing.
You're the utility man, and so it is. So is he, because he can do it all. You can do it all. What a blast!
Well, he does it all a little more than I do, but quite a bit. I mean, wow, Paul McCartney. What an incredible gift to humanity Paul McCartney is.
Very early on in Music on the Run podcast, we had a chance to sit down with Kevin and Michael Bacon. They came to my studio. We had the opportunity to make it look really groovy and set up lights for these rock stars. And we talked about what it's like to make music with family.
That's a good way to describe it. Right, and in my case, my mother was kind of an old lady by the time I was born.
Mine too, actually. You're
really?
the youngest?
I'm the youngest.
I'm the youngest.
You're the youngest.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I know a little bit about being a little brother.
Yeah, yeah. And Michael was kind of always a musician, so I grew up listening to him writing songs, playing in bands, practicing. I think our mother, although I've never really had this confirmed, I think our mother was very, very adamant that you become a musician, right? Do you think she was really instrumental in that or not so much?
Definitely instrumental, just because she got me a cello and a teacher when I was, I think, about 5.
Right.
And that was a formative experience because I can remember when the cello came into our house, what room it was, what the lacquer smelled like.
All right.
And since that time, musical instruments have always been completely magical. So to be here today, I'm just like a kid.
I want to touch them all.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, but I don't think our parents ever really wanted to point us any particular direction. Maybe our dad a little bit. I know that when I dropped out of college, I was a fraternity guy in Weegens and the Khakis, and then all of a sudden went into a hippie band, and a total life change. And my father was really disappointed until the band started to become successful. I think that they both wanted success for us.
Of course, don't all parents?
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that they would bring a cello into the house. Was that more of a, since they weren't musicians proper, correct?
No. Not even improper.
Okay, so
they definitely weren't musicians.
So they bring the cello into the house just for exploration, for a cultural reason? Why the cello?
I think because they love music. And they saw that I maybe had an aptitude for it and an interest in the instruments. I think I actually played a C sax before that. I had a lesson with this beautiful teenage girl, and somehow in my lesson, her thumb got caught in a drawer.
What?
Yes.
I gotta write another song.
And it just was kind of traumatic. And that was the end of the C sax. So then when the cello came in, I had that seed already planted. And the thing that's interesting, especially looking at your place here, is our dad was trained as an architect. He became a city planner. So our house on Locust Street, the whole downstairs, he took out all the walls and he built in basically a hi-fi system with a 18-inch Jensen speaker, Altec Lansing horn. So the whole first floor of our house was really a gigantic
So
speaker.
they loved music.
They loved music.
They just didn't play
No.
necessarily.
Our mom played a little bit of Mando, but that's really all I really remember her playing. And our father, we often like to say that when he would sing us lullabies, we would pretend to be asleep.
So we'd be finished. Thank you, Dad.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
What about your brothers and sisters? the rest of them? You're 6, is that right?
6, yeah.
And
Four
two
girls,
of
and
us.
2 of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
They-
Our older sister Hilda was a singer in the kind of like Joni Mitchell, Judy Collins vein.
Oh, cool.
She had long, beautiful, teenage girl with long blonde hair and sang. What's it called? Raggle Taggle Gypsies or something like that.
Yeah, folk song. Like
folk
kinda
songs, yeah.
Peter,
Okay.
Paul, and Mary, Brothers 4, or Kingston Trio, that kind of thing.
And
Okay.
Michael had a band with her that I remember them practicing in our basement, and I must have been, I don't know, how old were you when you
I
had
was
the
probably
jug thing?
15, so do the math.
Yeah,
Or
so
6.
15, so I was...
That's going to do it for this look back at year 1 of Music on the Run. I just want to say thank you to my producer, Davide Raso, the motor crew, Ivan Sebastianov, and of course, Jake Miller, and all the guests who took time out of their busy lives to come on and share a little bit of their knowledge with us. But I really want to thank you, the fans who are listening to this podcast, those who are helping us at patreon.com. We so appreciate you, and we're doing this for you. That's the whole reason that we do this, is that we love you, and you guys keep coming back for more. So we cannot thank you enough. Again, thank you to those of you who have financially sponsored us at patreon.com/Music on the Run podcast. We could not do this without you. It does take money to put this on, and we have another offer. I want to show you. I told you about this earlier today. Those of you who sign up, the brand new incentive is this beautiful hoodie. Yeah, it's a gorgeous sweatshirt, Music on the Run sweatshirt, and it's for you guys. It's those of you who are able to come on and sponsor us at Patreon. All the details are there. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you again, and God bless you, and happy holidays. Music on the Run was hosted by yours truly, St. Paul Peterson. Edited and produced by my buddy Davide Raso. Video editing by Ivan Sebastianov. And a very special thanks to the people who financially support this podcast. And remember, we couldn't do this without you.